Booyah! And it's time for the Game Sports Podcast with your host, David McCaig Jr. The game is powered by 91 Network and featured on Spaces. 91N is a YouTube channel where you can check out video editions of the game. And Spaces is through Village Media and Sault Today. The game is on the hockey and sports space of the Sault Ste. Marie Spaces page. Check out the space that you desire today. Now, you can check out all the social medias for the Game Sports Podcast. That is TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We're also on all audio platforms for podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google. We are all over. You can search us on Gemini, Chat, GPT, Microsoft Teams, Copilot, whatever you're on. You search the Game Sports Podcast, you will find us. It might even tell you, booyah. It told me that. I was kind of creeped out. But nonetheless, you can find us as long as you search for us. And if you've been following the game, this is in now just over 10 years. January was our 10-year anniversary for the game. We are now in May. So we're hitting the halfway point of that, close to. So if you've been around from the start, we appreciate your continued support. If you're fairly new, we appreciate the continued support. And, well, if you're new to the platforms, well, welcome to a very electrifying podcast. We'd like to say we're different than everybody else, just like everyone says. But we have a lot of content you can check out on the game, especially our special edition shows. Doesn't matter if it's from 2017, 2018, 19 up to date. All the content from all the shows, we make sure that's relevant if you're catching up on the content, especially the special editions that you can check out. The first 40 plus were audio only, though. Unfortunately, we didn't start using video content until after the 40th episode, and with our news shows until around COVID, was near the middle of COVID. So if you're looking for some previous video, well, you don't get to see how we've aged over the last 10 years, but in a good way here on the game. But we have the same family together, along with some newcomers on the show that have joined recently or over the past year. And we appreciate everyone's support and continued support for the Game of Sports Podcast. As always, a lot of great things coming in terms of content, especially those special editions that I alluded to a few moments ago. We have some good episodes coming up that will be uploaded on the platform, such as one with Nick Laporte. He's known as Gorgeous, in the very near future as well. Very excited. And just to remind you, the show does bi-weekly news shows now for the rest of May, going into June, and then as well as July. But after the end of July, when we hit August, we normally only do one episode in August before we start ramping back up in September, where we get back to football, hockey season around the corner from that. We also got the MLB playoffs by then. There's a lot. So we do have a lighter schedule throughout the summer, but we're hoping to substitute that with some special editions for you and a lot of interactive pieces that you could be a part of. So make sure you're following on all social media. I want to spend the first few minutes getting into that with you and just kind of reminding you. You may forget, and you also may follow a lot of podcasts, okay? But the Game Sports Podcast loves when you're part and you're interacting. We love the interaction as of late on TikTok over the past few months. Continue that. We will answer you. We will debate with you. You can chirp us. Feel free. Now, for tonight's agenda, you're going to have me just kind of open the show here and a little reaction on something first before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show, we'll call it. After we take past this introduction and we get to the first kind of breather, if you will, we're going to have Brendan McCarthy joining yours truly to kick off the Top Shelf segment. And then Evan is going to be joining us as well. Evan, we've had previously on the show, known as the statistician, if you will. He'll be coming on to react. He's a big Montreal fan. Definitely want to hear from him and his reaction as we preview previous round, the NHL Conference Finals. Brendan and I are going to talk about the coaching carousel going on and some news around the NHL. A lot of hockey to catch you up on. Now, we're not going to have Chuck-a-Puck today, but I will be doing some Memorial Cup discussion and some baseball discussion at the last segment, where I'll once again be a solo for that, as Jordan Trudeau and Connor Henderson have taken vacation days for the show today. Now, Connor Henderson, speaking of that amazing human being, Connor Henderson, happy belated birthday, my friend. I was unable to make his birthday, and it was in the Sioux, and I was unable to attend. Life of being a father, ladies and gentlemen, and having an 11-month-old at home, who's Arlo's now 11 months old. Fun fact. Can't believe how time is flying by. But they've taken a vacation day, but we plan to have Trudes and Hendo on for the next edition of the game, which will be 2 weeks from now. So that will be on June the 3rd. Then the week after, I'm actually going to a Phillies-Jays game on June the 10th. So we're definitely going to try to get some content for you there as well, and some reaction, maybe a live recording. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not too sure that I will do that. But just to give you a fun introduction to start, I'm going to get into my one topic that I wanted to discuss today, and it's about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Canadian back-to-back MVP. It is great. You had Nash announcing it on TV, a Canadian to a Canadian. It's great to see. And there hasn't been, this isn't a shot to the Americans, but it's been international players that have won the MVP over the past 8 years. It is great to see, and the game in Canada is growing so much. Seeing this team on the court more and the players that are developing, it is fantastic. And Shea is leading the way, and he's doing it in impressive fashion. That is absolutely terrific. Congratulations to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. NBA playoffs still going on. A lot of news that you're waiting for off the court. We all know people are discussing LeBron James, but look, the Thunder just looking real good, right? As I said a few years ago, the Thunder is going to be a new dynasty in this era, in the 20s here, and they might even be in the 30s. I'm telling you right now, the Thunder are the real deal, and it's led by a Canadian. Love that. Proud, making your country proud, Shea. That's great. Too bad you're not playing for the Raptors. Now, one final thing I wanted to make sure that I mentioned before Brandon comes on in, we talk Top Shelf. The Game Sports podcast, there's been questions I've been asking. There's been some rumors going around about a name change of the show. I'm not going to comment about that, but I am going to let you know we have some big things coming when it comes to September, and we're going to try to interact with the fans as much as we can with it. There's going to be some cool things on the go. As long as those launch plans remain, we may have to delay until the new year, but nonetheless, for people that have texted and asked, maybe some information may have leaked, but there's nothing that I can't or can confirm, but there's a lot of good things coming is what I can confirm. Okay? Now, if you're confused by that, that's a good thing. I'm trying to confuse you right now. Not going to spoil no surprises that are coming up. And you may think name, you may think this, you can think what you want, but you won't know until it happens. Little side piece I want to make sure I just plugged in before I took a quick breather here. Like I said, we're going to be doing Top Shelf when we come back here on The Game. Welcome back to The Game. I'm now joined by B-Mac doing some Top Shelf action. Look, I got the introduction out of the way, B-Mac. You don't have to sit there and hear me talk for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever minutes that it takes me to do. But my friend, good to see you. How you been?
I'm doing great, man. Just enjoying the playoffs. It's been unbelievable. And dare I say it, I'm actually kind of happy for Habs fans.
You know what? I know as Toronto fans or Canadian fans, you chirp each other, but you know what? You want to see the cup come back to Canada, and you got to love what the Bell Center and it is a Cinderella story of sorts. Obviously, they're not a first seed, but they're not a low seed, but they're mid seed. But they beat the Buffalo Sabres, and obviously, my playoff prediction's wrong for a Buffalo-Colorado final. So that's completely shot out the window. But Montreal deserved to win that series, even though it was an electrifying series, man, right from start to finish.
Yeah, and I'm happy for them because the Bell Center and Montreal fans, just see them out in the streets, like it is electric, like bar none the best fan base in the league. And if you're the Canadians, the players and the fans, you got to be feeling pretty motivated, right? You knocked off Tampa, you knocked off Buffalo, right? And if you're the players right now sitting in Carolina getting ready for game 1 of the conference final, you're going, who's next, baby? Because like we keep finding a way to get it done. They keep finding a way to get the job done. You could argue that Tampa played them better in game 7. You could argue that Buffalo, was a superior team in game 7. But they ultimately found a way, a la Alex Newhook, an absolute stud for the Canadians, locked this guy up forever. And, I know they haven't. What's that? What's that? Yeah. There's the thumbnail. Newhook over McDavid, ? But we can touch on this later with Evan, just about the Habs play at home, and on paper it's not good, but it's weird because the fan base is just electrifying. You'd think it would boost them every time, but yeah. We'll ask Evan's take, who's coming up. He's been on the show before, fantastic guy, one of my coworkers. We actually had a bet. I want to bring it up with him as well, which we'll get into as well. But one of our stats guru and a devout Habs and Cowboys fan. But yeah, if you're the Habs, it's like we played a lot of hockey, so fatigue can be an issue. But it's like, all right, Carolina's been out since, not out, sorry, but they haven't played a playoff game since what, March? It's been forever. So I think for them it's just like let's just keep rolling here. And if you're the Canes, it's like, yeah, maybe they have a little bit of jump out of the gate because they haven't played in a while. But the Habs are riding high right now. And I'm going to be honest with you, man. I think I'll take the Habs and take the Canes. And in the West, I'm going to take Vegas over Colorado. So give me a Habs-Vegas final.
That I'm going to say right off the hop that both series are going to be exciting from a different perspective. You have a Cinderella story. The way that I think of it is you have a team that is kind of a different narrative. You have Rod Brindamore, who has, let's call it a well-oiled machine. Let's call it
Yeah.
that. And then Martin St. Louis gritty Canadiens team. Okay. I like the way that is. And if you think of an X factor in the series, it's got to be, you got to think of Dobish just has to continue to be that Cinderella story running around the back to back, to win game 7 since Ken Dryden, like these now saying, what's a game 7 win? We don't know what that is. So there's a good piece when it comes to that narrative. And then you have from the other side, Jared Bednar, like a Titan type team, like that team that just, when you see them, I hear the Jaws song. It's just so the Jaws song and okay, then you got John Tortorella, who somehow evolved this Vegas team to coach well under that, and Mitch Marner's performing well under John Tortorella. So to give you the predictions, though, I got to predict, again, swords away, Habs fans. I'm taking Carolina to defeat Montreal in another 7-game series. I'm going to give you the games. And I'm going to say Colorado is going to defeat Vegas in 5. Sorry, Vegas. Colorado just looks way too good. Even without Cale Makar in the first game, it doesn't matter. Colorado's just looking superior. It's going to be a Carolina-Colorado final, in my honest prediction. Okay.
All right. So we're completely opposite here.
That's good. I again, maybe I'm doing it with an intent, because Montreal, I predicted against them each series and they keep proving me wrong. So maybe there's some intent behind it. Take that as you want. But both series are going to be very exciting, Brendan. I have to give the edge for the most exciting series to be Carolina-Montreal, though, not by a landslide, because I don't want to doubt Vegas and Colorado by any means, but I think Colorado's going to show Vegas a lesser two. I watched what they did against Minnesota, and I think Minnesota would be a harder team to play against than Vegas. Bold take, okay? I think Colorado is going to prove why they're likely winning the Cup this year. Spoiler, if you hear that.
Yeah, I don't think Minnesota brought their best. Let's be honest. I mean, Colorado rocks through the Kings, and then Minnesota, if you remember, I had Minnesota winning that series, and Colorado, they played well, but I don't think Minnesota brought their best game. I know Quinn Hughes is Quinn Hughes, but man, like you heard Billy Guerin after that series exit, he was like, everyone's on the table. Gretzky got traded. Like, that's the cutthroat industry that the NHLers live in, right? So I think Vegas, Colorado will be a phenomenal series, and it's going to be hard to top the Buffalo Montreal. So far, that's the series of the playoffs in the East and the West. Yeah. But hopefully we get some more fireworks in the Carolina Montreal series, which goes tomorrow, May 20th.
Now, coaches, quickly before Evan joins us, there's been a clean out in Vancouver. We know Toronto has had their clean out. I did a clip on that you could check out on the game's TikTok. You had Edmonton fire Chris Knobloch, which I was really surprised about, to be totally honest with you. It was the most surprising one. But we have Vancouver, Edmonton, and Toronto looking for coaches in the Canadian side of things. And I want to do predictions for you and myself who we think are going to be the coaches. If you've already seen my clip, well, you're going to know one of my team's predictions, but you won't know the rest. So make sure you don't scroll up or miss this. But you also didn't hear BMAC's picks. So BMAC, I'm going to go to you first. Vancouver, Toronto, Edmonton. Who's the new coaches? I put 3. I only prepped you saying I was going to ask you 2, but I'm asking you a third.
Okay, I'm going to go Gerard Gallant for Vancouver.
Okay.
Yep. I'm gonna say GG back in not back in Van, but back to coaching in the NHL too. Van. He's been everywhere, and he's had some success too. New York, Vegas, right? So it's time for GG to get back in the league. And then for Toronto and Edmonton, just because we live in the entertainment industry, let's see a swap. Knobloch and Berube. Let's just switch teams completely. Knobloch to Toronto and Berube to Edmonton to work with 29 and 97.
Why not make that just absolute cinema, right? But then when McDavid's a free agent, McDavid goes to Toronto while Austin goes to LA or somewhere else, and then McDavid's back under Knobloch. Wouldn't that be funny? I'll say Vancouver. I got some obvious choices here, people. I'm sorry. Manny Malhotra, I think, is going to go to Vancouver, which I think could be a sick hire, and that Toronto should look at considering as well. But Vancouver with Manny Malhotra. For the Edmonton Oilers, yeah, Craig Berube just fits the bill. I think that is going to be the fit. But in Toronto, I was thinking Knobloch. I was also thinking Bruce Cassidy. I was thinking guys, but my number one guy and the guy that I hope they get is David Carl. I think that would be a great fit and fit the description for the Toronto Maple Leafs going forwards. But nonetheless, Brendan, we have let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have Evan join us here on.
All right, welcome back to the Game Sports Podcast, Top Shelf segment with David McCaig Jr., Brendan McCarthy, and Evan Dowbiggin, TSN Statsman and devout Cowboys and Habs fan, making a return to the Game Sports Podcast. Thanks so much for hopping back on.
You got it. No, we've been trying to put this together for a while, I guess, and it's a good time to get back at it with all the events going on, like the Stanley Cup playoffs, obviously, first and foremost.
And you're
Absolutely
doing it calling in, so we appreciate you calling in and taking the time to do this with us too. I want to make sure to shout that out. And Brendan, great job on the
Absolutely.
Good to take a break on that. Love it.
Well, let's let Dave know and the rest of our listeners, because the bet will be fulfilled tomorrow. I basically took the Habs to beat the Sabres, and Evan took the Sabres, and the bet was a pound of wings. But then Evan and I thought, well, we're not going to be crushing wings and then going back to our keyboards and start typing away and creating content. So we decided on boneless wings. So Evan is kindly going to go through with the deal. So I appreciate you, Ev.
Well, it's worked out well in that we made one in the regular season when the Habs looked like they're falling out of a playoff spot, and you won. Geez, what was that one? Oh, you won a farmer's wrap. Yeah, good old Starbucks bacon sausage and egg wrap, aka farmer's wrap. And
Yeah, how much did that set you back, Ev? $35 for a farmer's wrap nowadays in this
Those
economy?
things, well, they're a little pricey, so you got a nice high priced item out of the whole deal, and now you're getting some wings, and it seems to be working out for me when I basically say, "Oh, I'll bet against my team because even if I lose, I'm happy, and someone else is happy too because they win a bet." So,
and also,
spread the love.
Brendan had a question for me, listeners and viewers, just so you know, and I skipped his question in our start of the segment. So we're going to save it for the end of the segment. So if you want to hear what that question is, you definitely got to make sure you stick around. I'll make sure I plug that. Sorry, Brendan. I got to make sure I plug that. People don't want to miss. They like the clips and they like to chirp us below. Maybe they'll chirp Evan. Who knows? It'll be fun. We'll talk.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Oh, absolutely. So Ev, obviously, I'll give you your flowers. You know, that the last Canadian team standing in the playoffs. And, you know, Bell Center, I was saying earlier with Dave, barn on the best barn in the league. The streets were basically as if the Habs won the cup. It was like unbelievable. But it's interesting though, because we were talking about today at work, like on paper that the Habs have been pretty bad at home in the playoffs. Like, what's your response to that? And do you kind of see the Habs maybe rebounding from that and performing a little better on home ice?
Yeah, you're correct in that. I mean, they're like it's mainly a Bell Center thing. It wasn't an issue at the Forum, and when I looked it up, a lot of Canadian teams have had poor outings in their history at the current arenas. Like in Ottawa, they don't have a winning record. I think at Scotiabank they barely have one, and most of that's because of the Sundin years and stuff. It's been pretty bad in the Matthews era. So the Canadians are no exception since they moved into Bell Center. They have not done so great there. A lot of those teams, mind you, weren't supposed to win, but even this year's team was supposed to, be a top level competitor, has gone 2-4, and a few of their losses, 3 of the losses they had a lead. I mean, one of them was an OT loss, 1-0, and then the other 3 they led at some points, including by 2 goals in 2 of the losses they had. And both of them, Game 4 was one of them against Tampa, and then Game 6 against the Sabres was a complete collapse. I think some of it has to do with what arenas are like nowadays in all aspects of the NHL. They don't have unique characteristics. They're not smaller, narrower, whatever. Their dimensions are all sort of similar. So even when you have an arena like the Bell Center, where everybody's, it's one of the loudest environments in all pro sports in North America, at least. And that seems to maybe rile up the road team. I think it's kind of inspired the road team over the years more than it has the home team. You would think, with all that, but I think what it does is create sort of like an extra pressure that, like trying to impress too much. You grip your stick tighter. You do things you normally wouldn't do on the road when you feel like you're the adversity, like you're all up against the world. And the Habs are a team with the way they're coached by Marty St. Louis and the way they are in terms of youth. They can really ride that sort of enthusiasm on the road, and it's done that all year. They were the second or third best road team in the regular season in terms of like winning percentage or whatever, like points percentage, goals per game, you name it. And at home, just okay. Like their power play is like 13th or so. Their offense barely top 10. Like for some reason, the Bell Center isn't where you see their top level game. So as for when you go forward here in this round and perhaps beyond, I think they will play better at home because the stakes are higher. So I think maybe a little bit more focus and less nerves. It's hard to say what the the wear and tear of this long run will do to them in that case, because of obviously they played way more games, and Carolina's played 8 games and the Habs have played 14. That could factor in later in the series. It could factor in later into a cup final should they get there. But I think you'll see better play defensively, particularly from the Habs in the playoffs at the Bell Center in this series. I don't think they'll be quite as hard to watch, turning the puck over, giving up bad power play goals against when it comes to this round. And I think Carolina isn't that kind of lighted up sort of team like Buffalo, who lives and dies by that, barn burner style of game. So, and a long way to answer your question. That's what I see happening going forward here, and why I think they have struggled at home to begin with.
What I love that you said, because I was going to ask, what's the difference in games that these teams have played? Montreal's played 14, Carolina has played 8. You're bang on a bit against it. 7-game grueling series from Montreal against Tampa, 7-game grueling series against Buffalo, and then you had an overtime game winner, an emotional game winner by Alex McDavid. Oops, sorry, I misread that. Alex Newhook.
Yeah.
But there's something I like to call in the world of hockey that I'm very happy I get to say now. It's been maybe 13 years since when I coached, but over 15 years since I played. There's something called competitive adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
That's at an all-time high when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens right now. Not saying that they're not where they should be, but obviously they weren't favorites in the rounds that they played in, and they do deserve to be, because they are a team that is a mid-seed. I was talking to Brandon about that at the beginning, and I think the take that I have that I want to spin off to you that I noted was, do you value Carolina's fresh legs and elite health? Or do you bet on Montreal because they're still in, again, that competitive adrenaline game mode, like while Carolina's trying to.
It's a great question. Yeah.
Well, the big stat that being thrown around, I didn't even dig it up. I saw it before I could even really comprehend and then dig into it myself. It was already out there that teams coming off a 7-game series against a team that coming off a sweep. I think they're like 7-1 since 2000 or something like that. Usually the long series does favor you, but I think a lot of the time you've got to get your licks in early in the series. If you go into another 7-game series, there are a few examples of that. I mean, like the 2014 Kings, they went 3 rounds in a row to start, and they won 7, best of 7. They went all the way. They went the distance in each series and won, and then they won in the finals in 5 games. So they were the only outlier to that one, because any other time a team gets 2 straight 7-game series, the third one up tends to be their downfall. Like, Leaf fans might remember 93. They had to go to 7 games both rounds, and that adrenaline helped them against a Kings team that might have been slightly more rested off 2 6-game series. But in the end, look, what team had the fresher legs and all that. We won't get into Carey Fraser stuff, but obviously that series, the rest favored LA. And in the Canadiens' case, later in the series, I think that's where Carolina could hurt them by having the extra added rest and all that. Like, it could be their enemy early on, though, the Hurricanes. That's for sure. In that they're playing a team that's really good on the road. So like Carolina, I wouldn't say they should be disappointed. If they get a split, they should be happy with it. They should be happy. If they get 2-0, they should be really happy, because that's probably kind of the Canadiens, given their home play, that's probably going to be the series right there. So I think the Canadiens are in a must-split scenario. I think the Canadiens have to win 2 of the first 3, to be honest, because after that it might go downhill. And it's just kind of, in a situation where the Canadiens know that what their weaknesses are, but they're still overcoming them. And that can only take you so far. But I think the reason why it also isn't going to maybe deep six them so much like people think is because they're young. I mean, they're 25 years old as their average age. They're one of the youngest teams to get this far in a long time. Like they're up like with the age that the early 80s Oilers teams were. I'm not saying they're going to be a dynasty like that, but they're in a similar boat in that, like, extra games like this, that doesn't hurt them. I think they want to keep playing. I don't think they would want a long rest. Maybe it's good for a veteran team like Carolina, though. But for a team like Montreal to keep playing like this, they're running on, they're not running on empty, they're running on adrenaline, like you're saying, and they have youthful enthusiasm on their side, so they have more jam to them. If they played long playoff runs, had they been a veteran team, I think that maybe they're out of gas, but I don't see it yet. I don't know. I don't think they're gonna run out of steam as soon as people think.
Yeah, I think Carolina will be excuse me, really, really eager and have a lot of jump out of the gate, and will really start like throwing some early blows against the Canadiens. But I just feel like Montreal will ease into the series and come out with that TKO, because as we were saying before, Dave, like they have found a way. This isn't like a situation where it's like, oh, well, finally in the next round that they'll face, the toughest opponent. No, arguably, like Tampa should have beat them, and then it's like, well, the division winner Buffalo should have beat them. No, like here they are, and if you're Montreal Canadian and you're Martin St. Louis, you're feeling like sky high, full of confidence.
Bucks. $1 million.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
$1 million though.
Yeah, even just getting to the conference final, it's incredible. I'm sure the Leafs are watching that, and Leaf fans are like, why couldn't we have a game 7 like that against Florida? But
What's a
anyway, let's.
It's a game 7 win. Yeah. Jeez. Just give us one.
Evan just reminded me about LA in '93.
Yeah.
Well, the conference finals against Buffalo. You talk about the game 6 conference finals against Carolina. You talk about game 6 against Philly in '04. You talk about game 7 against Boston, game 7 against Boston, game 7 against Boston. It doesn't matter. You lose. You just lose.
There's seventh heaven and then there's the Leafs, seventh circle of hell, as they say. Like that's some franchises have that issue. And I'd say the Canadians, they do pretty well when they get to these scenarios over the years. They just don't get to them often, which is why they're on a 33-year cup drought themselves. It's just if they could get to the playoffs more consistently, like, hey, the Leafs just came off a run of 10 straight playoff berths. We haven't seen a Habs team do that in ages. I mean, 10 straight. If this team makes 10 straight playoffs, that would be an accomplishment. It's tough to do that these days, to get in the playoffs that many years in a row. Look at Florida. They just fell out of the playoffs this year. It's really, there's a testament to what the Leafs did. I mean, it's hard to get to the playoffs 10 straight years. And then again, it's also hard to not really get past second round in all of those too. So there's two distinctions going for them right here.
Man, there's a couple things to that. There's two things. And one hot take is that, you know what? I watched these teams in the playoffs this year, lasted one round. So I'm happy because they also got something else in return.
Exactly.
Which likely will be the guy. Thing is that I like to say too is the players that are stepping up. Look at Freddie Anderson, former Leaf. I couldn't make it. Guys playing video game numbers. Mitch Marner learned how to play in the playoffs. Where did he play for the last 10 years? That's right, Toronto. Guys that didn't play for Toronto, though, that are looking real good. Lane Hudson, 14 points in 14 games, if I have that correctly, for Lane Hudson.
Yes.
Guys, where do you find those in the trees? Where do they come from? And then you got Alex Newhook. Sorry, I keep getting them mixed up. Like guys playing on a whole different level. Then you got some obvious stars, right? McKinnon. Those. I guess Marner's a obvious star, but not in the playoffs. He isn't. So there's been some storylines this playoffs that will either really piss off Toronto fans or just love it, make you love it as a sports fan. And even though you're upset as a Toronto fan because of Marner or even Frederik Andersen, these storylines are great, and it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, there's something to be said for talent is one thing, and the Leafs definitely had it in spades for all those years. But chemistry and culture are two things that are just as important, and we're seeing that in other teams, what they're doing, and we saw what the Leafs did in that 10-year period. Just never coalesced. They never seemed like a real team that just got bonded and like fought for each other and like were willing to go out there and put their bodies in the line for each other. It just never materialized like that, despite all that great talent right there. I mean, didn't seem like they were the best of pals even, like compared to these other teams. I just didn't see that.
It's true. It's true, Evan. No, you're 100% right. Well, you mentioned Mitch Marner, so let's stick with the Golden Knights and Avalanche series. Who do you got coming out of that series?
I've got the Avalanche coming out of that one. I think that the Knights are not going to, even though they obviously against a team like Colorado, you get behind the 8 ball early, it could be curtains fast, like you could get swept or losing 5. But I think they'll push them to 6. I know that the Wild weren't able to do that, and the Wild were obviously a better team than Vegas this year. But Vegas has gotten this far and has got a little bit more confidence in themselves. Getting Torts on board and stuff has seemingly like gave them a chance to turn a new page. And they've shown in the playoffs they're a different team in the regular season. They've been more consistent. They've done all the things well that sort of, betrayed them in the regular season where they just couldn't get regulation wins. Their offense sort of disappeared. There was some instability in goal. None of those things right now are dogging them. So they've got a huge task in their hands, obviously, with a Colorado team that's, Carolina's 8-0, they're 8-1, but I don't see much of a difference. I think Colorado might be more impressive only because they can beat you any kind of way. We saw them win games against LA like 2-1, and we saw them do like 4-2 wins against the Wild, and then they also had a 9-6 game. I mean, you can't get into that kind of shootout game and beat them, but you also might not be able to come back against them. So they're the complete team in many senses. So I've got to go with Colorado in 6 in that one. But Vegas is not to be taken too lightly, just like Montreal, I guess you could say. But Vegas, I think, might be actually a little bit more of an underdog than the Habs, but in my opinion, but they are still not a team that's just going to like lay down. There's too many veterans and too many guys with cup rings there for me to see them getting swept or maybe even beaten at 5. So yeah, I'll go with that.
One thing I didn't fill Dave on is that Evan Dowbiggin is the best impersonator that I know.
Okay.
So sticking with the Golden Knights, before we let you go, can you give us a quick John Tortorella impression?
Oh, okay. Well, there's some other people around here who like to do the torch thing of back and forth with our pal Tony Rosenberg, but usually there's something where he's at a press conference. He goes, now, I know you guys have a job tonight. I know you're going to ask. I know you're going to talk about Mitch, but look, this guy is this guy is a total class citizen. I don't care what happened to him in Toronto. I don't want to talk about that. You're not getting to the Monarch kid. Okay. You're not going to, I won't let you ask those questions because it's not fair. All right. So we're done talking about Mitch's past in Toronto. We don't. That's old news.
Good.
That's torch for you.
I love you got like the Brooklyn accent or whatever. Like where's he from again? Ed?
Mass. He's from Boston.
Oh, he's from Mass, right? Mass. Yeah. He's got that thick Mass accent done. It's cat.
It's not as thick as when he first started coaching, but it's there still. You know, comes out when he gets angry.
And he's like my height, Ev. Like he's a short guy, but man, he's tall and in passion and just his hockey IQ.
Yeah, he's one of a kind. He stands out nowadays with coaches or so. They're usually close to the vest, and Torts is. Yeah, I mean he's gruff and he's sometimes short and sweet with things, whether that bothers people or not. So he's a character though.
And he's beloved too. He's beloved like that. I'm pretty sure it's true, but that 2020 bubble series, Leafs and Jackets, like he was seen giving Subway sandwiches to homeless people outside Scotiabank. I believe.
Right, he does it off.
Wasn't that legit? Yeah.
Yeah, supposedly he does this sort of stuff, but he doesn't really like publicize it much. He's apparently he acts like he's the big villain or the big cantankerous jerk, but I guess off the ice he's actually a sweetheart. That's kind of cool to hear.
Yeah, well said.
And I'll leave statistician on this last thought. You love stats. This will be a reference to Carolina and a reference to Montreal series. So we have talked about 14 games to 8, talked about points, but everyone's marking Carolina down to be a block for the Cup Finals for the most part, if you want to say it. But look at the tape and look at the stats. Montreal swept the season series 3-0. They outscored Carolina 15-8. So the Habs are not scared of this team.
No, that's true.
I'm going to leave you with those two stats. The people think it's the regular season, it doesn't matter. Nah, it does matter. It creates confidence. It does matter. And I know I predicted the other way, Evan. I'll be honest. I picked the Hurricanes. I went the Lame's favorite route on both sides of the series. But you know what? It was hard to choose. And I told Brennan, I told BMAC, I predicted against Montreal all playoffs. Maybe
don't do it.
Maybe that's what I want to predict.
Don't do it.
I want to predict against them the entire time because it doesn't matter if Montreal doesn't make it for 4 years. They come back, might lose in the first round, but you know what? The next year they come back, they make the Cup Finals. It doesn't matter. This team just figures it out, and they're going to put on one hell of a show. And
absolutely,
I appreciate the feedback that you gave on both series and about that with Montreal, Evan. It was great to have you join us again.
Enjoy the trivia, Evan.
Yeah, go in and have a fun time tonight. Not hockey trivia, just Simpsons stuff.
Oh,
TV nerd.
I might. No, okay, that's stuff we could talk about off air. I love that.
Yeah.
Some of the questions. I think you should put some of the questions in the chat. Okay, and I promise I won't use any AI tools to answer. Okay, I promise.
Brain teasers.
Yes, brain teasers. Love that.
All
right, Evan. Thanks for coming by, my friend. We'll be in touch. And if the Habs make the finals, you know where you're coming to react.
Yeah, I better come back. If they get in the finals, that has to be done. That's a once in a lifetime thing. You never really know. As people know, cheering in this city, that could be something you don't see for generations. Just there's nothing guaranteed, even with a good team on paper like the Habs have.
mean nothing for 35 years as a Leaf fan. The Jays losing with 2 outs last year, 2 outs away.
Yeah.
I still can't sleep at night. But like,
Yeah, well, I lived through that too as a rare, weird Torontonian who's a Jays and Habs fan. I lived that too, and so 2 Game 7 wins have kind of turned around my luck on that one. But honestly, I don't know. I'll take that World Series over this Canadians run, only that I think the Habs will be back for another run at it. Whereas I think last year's Jays team, that was their chance. Would have taken that Game 7 victory over this run. But we're here now, and so might as well make the most of it. Maybe the Habs can finish off what the Jays couldn't. For me, I don't know. It's remains.
for Habs fans, there I said it, people. Okay, Evan, thank you very much, my friend. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Ev.
All right, take care.
Take care.
Oh, he's great.
Brandon, you have the question for me.
Yeah, we'll get a picture of the bet being fulfilled tomorrow of the Wings. Evan and I at work, so we'll get that up on the socials and whatnot. Okay, so sticking with the Worlds, which by the way, I was thinking about, Dave, on my drive home. Like, if you're out of the playoffs or didn't qualify for the playoffs, like that is a green light, like pre-summer with your partner or friends and family for a vacation. You're playing hockey, so you're staying fresh and loose, but you're also in like cool European countries. You're having a blast, probably partying, eating like delicious food. And like it's like obviously it's the world, so it's not like the Olympics, but I think it's a green light special just to like have kind of like a mini vacation before the summer kicks in and then the training kicks up. So I think it's really fun, and obviously hopefully Canada gets it done. Sid's over there, O'Reilly, Tavares, so a Canadian representation. Just wanted to get your thoughts on the whole Macklin Celebrini repping the C, and if you think it would have been a good idea for him to give it to Sid, or what was your take on that?
That's such a good question. And every time when I think of Canadian hockey, I think of a few captains, that would come to mind. But the one that sticks the most is Crosby. Golden goal, the last multiple Olympics that we're able to watch. And, he's won the gold medal as captain. My thoughts on it was that if Crosby would have started the tournament with Canada, he would have had the C 150%. When they announced Celebrini's captaincy, they had it in between O'Reilly and Tavares, and you could tell that there was a little bit of a mentorship there. That's what they were factoring, and I really appreciated that. And if you're a San Jose fan, you should look at that as a win because he is around people that have been leaders in the NHL and are known leaders. And yes, Tavares was a captain for multiple teams, and he is a good captain, as much as people want to disagree because he gave it to Austin Matthews in Toronto. But Macklin Celebrini keeping the C, I think, was the right decision when Crosby got there. And I know that's a hot take because of Captain Canada himself being Sidney Crosby, but you already announced Celebrini to have the A or the C. Sorry, you've already announced your alternate captains in your C. It's a very easy adjustment to give Crosby the A and add a letter to his jersey. When it comes to Celebrini, to say that, Celebrini stepped down to give the C, or Celebrini was stripped to give it to Crosby and he was given an A. This has Crosby written still all over it. This still has Sidney Crosby being offered the C from probably Celebrini, but also the Canadian organization. But Crosby being the mature and good leader that he is, saying, I've had my C, I've had my time. It has started to focus on the youth and training the youth to be leaders in this game. So I would like Celebrini to keep it. Because you kidding me? When Crosby walked in that room, I bet you Celebrini had a C halfway off his shirt to give it to Crosby. Or when he heard the roster that he was getting Crosby, I bet you the C was ripped off. But Crosby, being the leader that he is, told Celebrini to keep it. And I think that shows the true captain on the team. You don't need a C or an A to be the captain of the team. React general, I think it's the right choice, keeping it for Celebrini from a media perspective and a grooming perspective. But if Crosby would have started the tournament with the team, he would have had the C. We all know that. We all know that they would have had to have a different approach. But my reaction is that I think without knowing the truth, I think it was a good decision by Crosby to let Celebrini keep it.
So Brad Treliving was interviewed on TSN's Overdrive today, this afternoon, May 20th. And basically, he explained that it was a standoff between Celebrini and Sid. Obviously, as you alluded to, Celebrini was like, C's halfway off the jersey. I'm obviously going to, hand it to Sid. And Sid was like, no. Like, look I'm gone in the next few years. Like, that's Sid. He's full of class, and he would say, no. Like, keep the C, right? This is the next captain of Team Canada. Obviously, McDavid's going to be the guy, but then it's Celebrini. Like Celebrini, it's great that they didn't do anything. And anyone who thinks that they should have swapped is stupid and doesn't understand hockey, because Sid's not going to come in and be like, hey, good. Like, it doesn't work that way. And Treliving also said that, Tavares and O'Reilly were like, look, Mac, like, you're the captain, but like, we fully support you. So I don't see Mac being like a big, loud voice in the locker room. You got Sid, Tavares, and Ryan O'Reilly to do that, right? But maybe Mac, leads by example. Actually, I know he leads by example on the ice with his play, maybe on the bench. But I think this is a great fit. And the whole back and forth, like, oh, we shouldn't. No, like, that's just, it doesn't work like that. And like, hockey is a brotherhood, and like the camaraderie and everything. No one goes in and just be like, excuse me, kid. Like, it just doesn't.
That's mine.
It doesn't work that way. Yeah, it just doesn't work that way. And anyone that was like fighting for it, and then or fighting for the opposite, I just thought it was complete and utter lunacy, because it just doesn't work that way. So I think it's like, hey, you know what? Let Mac rep the C. He's going to be captain of Canada one day anyway. And Sid is one of one. He wouldn't want to come in and disturb anything. They didn't know if he was coming. Treliving said today, I thought Sid wasn't. He's played a lot of hockey this year. He was at the Olympics in Milan. He went to the playoffs with the Pens, obviously an early exit. So anyone would be like, I need the summer off, not for Sid because he's a robot, but he, no one knew he was coming. So if you're just like, oh, I'm going to head over there, like, it's like, okay, but we have the captain already decided. So at that point, he's just like, I'm happy to be here. I'll bring my leadership skills into the room, but I don't need to have the C on my jersey.
Buddy has multiple gold medals. Buddy has not just Olympics. He has World Juniors. He has 3 cups. He has MVPs. He's got it. He's good. He's happy. He's here just to continue playing hockey, and I'm sure his focus is to lead Canada one more time at the Olympics 4 years from now. But we don't know if he's going to get there. I don't know. Like, playing at 42 nowadays, you see Matthew Zuccarello, who's 38, all the same age as Crosby, but you saw Lemieux do it in 02, being a little bit older, but you don't know if that's going to be the same nowadays. I think Crosby's going to be there at the next Olympics, but I am a little bit hesitant. I'm not confident in that answer. But again, Crosby made the right decision not taking it from Celebrini, because let's get real, he was offered it. You can bet your bottom dollar Celebrini got up and said, here you go, like you said.
100%. But Sid was obviously like, no, and then it was a back and forth. And then my understanding is that the assistant stepped in and be like, all right, we're gonna continue with what we're doing, but just know you have a support system here, and we can carry the load in terms of, like, just leadership qualities and whatnot. So I think it's going to be a great finish at the Worlds, and hopefully Canada redeems himself after a Denmark loss last year. Remember that? That was a crushing defeat. So let's get back and let's get a gold, boys.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good question. Good question. Good take. I'm happy that you asked that. I know my wife, who's a big Crosby fan, even said, she said, Sid, she said, quote unquote, Sid got offered that C, and he said no. 100%. That is what happened. And I'm sure Celebrini, the 19-year-old that he is like, no, no. But that is class from Crosby, and that's class from veteran leadership.
Let's get the partners, both our partners on the pod. I feel like you said your partner has had some good lines. She said the uninspired Maple Leafs back in the fall. She called that early. Natalie knows her hockey. She loves Sid, and she watches every game with me.
Your wife's, sorry.
My wife, Sid.
Your one partner sings, right?
Yes, she does. Yes.
I think you
maybe she can come on and sing about Sidney Crosby and the Leafs
he sings.
perennial
My wife,
playoff early exits.
they both. So we got two singers. She sings.
Oh my God, fantastic! Let's do it.
That's great. I don't know how I remember that. Remember you telling me that. I think I might have said something. I don't know. But hey, you know what? My memory's weird. But nonetheless,
Nat knows her stuff, and it sounds like your partner. What's your partner's name?
Anna.
Anna. Sounds like Anna knows her stuff too. So let's get it on and do a sing along and shoot the breeze about hockey.
That would be an epic episode. Hey, you know what? The game's been around for 10 years. There's a lot of content we like to do here. That's great. Brendan.
Love it. Great stuff.
Great stuff. Great segments. Still keeping it within our time as much as we can within the hour of the show. We've still got time for people to listen to me for the next few minutes. Wrap up a final topic. I'll let you go. The next episode we have that's a news show is June the 3rd, which by then will be in Stanley Cup Finals preview, my friend. So we'll be in touch very soon.
Thanks, Dave. Cheers.
Now, getting to the final segment of the show, we got about a handful of minutes here. I'm going to dive in to the Memorial Cup preview, and then I'm going to have some MLB reaction to wrap up the show. Now, for the Memorial Cup, we have the picture painted. You have the Kelowna Rockets, who are the host team. You have the OHL champion Kitchener Rangers. You have the WHL champion Everett Silvertips. Then you got the QMJHL champions Chicoutimi playing there, and four teams that are really going to be battling for the Memorial Cup from May 22nd to May 27th. And you have some droughts that were broken. You got some powerhouse teams making some appearances and a host team that's looking to repeat history from 20 years ago. Okay. And out of the four teams that I'll talk about mainly, of course, because seeing them in the playoffs against the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, the Kitchener Rangers. The Rangers are an absolute wagon. And they just captured their fifth championship by taking down Barrie. And again, an absolute wagon right now. You have Everett, who just captured their first ever in franchise history and their first ever Memorial Cup appearance. And then you got Chicoutimi, who just, again, won their first league title in 32 years. And it's kind of like, I'll think of it like a wave of destiny. Let's call it that. And when you look at Kelowna, this is for the first time since their legendary 2004 Memorial Cup win, they're back on home ice with it. So you got some opportunity here for some very unique storylines when it comes to the Memorial Cup. And the Kitchener Juggernaut is what I'm going to call this. You have Kitchener being the undisputed, and that word I don't use a lot unless I'm talking about the WWE, favorite in this tournament. You have Sam O'Reilly being the overall player who just captured the Wayne Gretzky 99 award as OHL playoff MVP. He's playing out of his mind, and I said Kitchener's being an absolute wagon. But will the travel, will the style of play between the WHL and QMJ catch them off guard early is the question that I have. And to be honest, no. Seeing this team against the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds go through the entirety of the Ontario Hockey League playoffs, there was a team that was able to separate itself from its competition in a pretty convincing fashion. Not because of score, but just because of the little intricacies of the game. Dump and chase, physicality, capitalizing in key moments, depending on one another and really leaning on the chemistry and culture of the team to bring out the best of each other. I know that sounds really corny, but if you listen to the show a little bit ago when we have Evan and Brendan on, chemistry and team fit is so massive in the success of how a team operates. You can have four lines of all the all-stars you want, and at the end of the time when you face adversity or a team that's battling, how will a team of stars go against with a team that has stars throughout mainly the full roster, but the right fit of guys? And that's what Kitchener has. And you can give me those guys that have stars and a mix of the right fit of guys, because you know that those guys are going to battle for the full amount of the game, the full 60 minutes. They're really going to give it to you, and they're going to pick up each other. Stars would do that too, but you have a lot of stars that have a similar mindset, where when you have a team that has a fit, very obvious point, especially if you're in minor hockey, you hear this a lot, putting the right fit together. This is what Kitchener has done this year with this team. You have, if you look at it, Everett, Kitchener, Chicoutimi are all fresh off battle-tested playoffs and winning, right? And Kelowna, and an angle that I made note for myself, was in 2004, like I mentioned, when they hosted and they won the whole thing. The whole thing. Can this team do the exact same thing and that is have that same energy to overcome that layoff rust, something we talked about with the Carolina Hurricanes, but different example? Or are they going to get steamrolled by 3 hyper-confident league champions, one of which that is an absolute juggernaut? They're going to start their tournament against the Kitchener Rangers, and that's going to be an indicator of where the Kelowna Rockets are going to sit in this playoffs. Throughout the Memorial Cup, my apologies. Everett and Chicoutimi, look, this is going to be like a WHL heavy metal type hockey against a speedy, emotional type team from Chicoutimi, the QMJHL champions. Look, Memorial Cup is one of the hardest trophies to win. And I know that's a hot take because you can have, and I'm comparing to the junior and the professional leagues that are very much different. Stanley Cup, NBA, all those leagues are different. But if you want to compare semi-pro, you want to compare the major junior hockey scene, you want to compare in the United States when it comes to the USHL and the NCAA, which is also very challenging. But when it comes to comparisons in the junior hockey ranks, or if you compare the USHL or you compare the NCAA route, you can have a 60-win season, 65-win season, but if you don't show up in a 10-day sprint, all that could be gone. And Kitchener looks unstoppable. But people say, well, they won the OHL. Everett won the WHL. So what does it matter? Look, the goal is that you want to win everything at the end of the year. And the OHL championship is something that they'll never be able to take away from them. But all that work leading in the playoffs, there's still an end goal. And the end goal is not just to win your league, it's to win all of Canada when it comes to this. So that's why you got to come prepared to these. So it's one of the hardest trophies to win when you're comparing the major junior and the semi-professional, the underneath professional sports ranks. Obviously, you're talking the Stanley Cup, you're talking the NBA championship. Those are longer, grueling playoff matchups to a degree. But if you think about it, the Kitchener Rangers, they obviously had to go through their entire bracket. Now they got to play 10 more games. So actually playing more games than you would for the Stanley Cup Finals or an NBA championship. So a lot of people have debates about this, and I'm obviously set that the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs is the hardest and most grueling chance to win a championship. But the Memorial Cup and winning your major junior ranks here for the Canadian Hockey League is grueling and has a grueling in its own right. And it's going to be one heck of a tournament. Kitchener, though, is the absolute favorite for this tournament. And a big part of it is the play of the veterans that they have, the team that they have, as I mentioned, undisputed favorite. Comment below who you think is going to be walking away the Memorial Cup champion. Like I said, I got the Kitchener Rangers. Let's talk a little bit of MLB before we wrap up the show. And I'm looking up right now on my notes that I took note for myself. Obviously, if you look at the MLB right now, you got the American League is just 3 teams at the bottom with 21 wins, and you got the Rays and Yankees leading the way. The Jays, Red Sox, Orioles, all double digits behind the Rays and the Yankees. And you look at the other divisions, the American League Central, the American League West, a lot of close, near 500 teams. The American League East, the Rays and Yankees are running away with it per se, but these are teams that are still very early. We're still in May, and the Jays are almost pretty close to a record that they had last year before they started getting hot after a grand slam by Springer. But you know what? What I am seeing by this Blue Jays team in a game that's delayed right now in New York as of May 20th at 8:07 p.m., this is a team that has had games that they've just given away. The games against the Yankees, those are both games that they should have won. Games against the Tigers, one-run games that they won by 2 of them, but the one on Friday, another blown opportunity from the bullpen. The Rays, they were in those games, especially the Tuesday-Wednesday game. The first game did not seem like it, but these are games that the Toronto Blue Jays have to try to find ways to win, and things that are not working out in their ways that their bullpen is not playing up to the capacity and to the ability that they can play. The Hoffman, time to cut ties. Little, you've cut ties. You got to explore the trade market. Look at some teams that are struggling in the league that have some good arms, that look for a little bit of the change. Do you look at the LA Angels at some of the arms? Do you look at the Colorado Rockies? Do you maybe pick the brain of the San Francisco Giants to see what they would be willing to give up? Do you look at some bullpen arms that you can look at trying to bring in to make a difference on this team? Or do you call up from within? Adam Macko looking good. Do you maybe give Tiedemann a chance to come up and play out of the bullpen instead to ease him into his major league career? You've had a lot of injuries. The Blue Jays have had 14 guys out at one point, and they're still missing Kirk. They're missing Barger. They're missing Shane Bieber. You know, you got Trey Savage who started the season late. Gosman and Cease are leading the way with this rotation. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is snake bitten and in a dark place. He's on, but he always has this cold spell in the season. When's he going to get out of it? You have a lot of question marks for a team that was 2 outs away from winning the World Series, and people, and you've heard it earlier on the show with Evan making a comment even, but people doubting what this team could do. I got to remind everyone, we're still in May, but it's hard to get this far behind a division and do what they did last year to get back to win the division. So the turnaround has to be quick. And if you're looking at making a difference and you know that this is a team, when healthy, that you can win a World Series, you got to go for it. And I think the Blue Jays have to start with that bullpen. Rogers is the only guy that's considered and Varland. Varland and Rogers are the two guys of that bullpen that I can know as a fan depend on for that team to walk away and likely close out a win. But you put Fisher in, it's question mark. I know he's had some strong starts, but I'm not convinced. Hoffman, don't need to talk about Hoffman. This Mason Fluharty, also very inconsistent. But these are guys that help be a big part of the World Series run for Toronto. And people are saying, well, how do you cut ties on these guys so quick? Well, Hoffman's been struggling not just this year. He's been struggling since last season. And look at me. I'm already past my handful of minutes point. We're at 11 minutes here. I got to get to the more of the conclusion point at this point. But nonetheless, for this topic of talking baseball, the Toronto Blue Jays, is still early. I get to watch them in a couple weeks. Very excited, but I think there's opportunities for this management to really look at the bullpen and really see what needs to be changed. Look at the Phillies, made some adjustments. They're back up in the National League East now. I'm not saying to fire Schneider. That's not what I'm saying, but there needs to be changes. When it comes to bullpen arms, those are more kind of puzzle pieces that you can put together, and they're a lot easier than trading for a $30 million top 30, 40, 50 home run guy. The Blue Jays need to start stringing away hits. They need to start winning those close games, and the bullpen needs to stop screwing this team over. Going for the rest of the league, not just the Blue Jays, obviously the Orioles underachieving. They're 9-17 away from home. I want to really highlight that because when I highlight teams, the statistics are very interesting. The Blue Jays are 13-11 from home, but 8-16 on the road. Unbelievable. When you look at the Yankees, 16-6 at home, 500 almost away. The Rays pretty much identical, except they're 14-10 went away from the drop. You got the Orioles that are 9-17 on the road. A lot of very high and bad road records. Tigers, the Royals, the Twins. You got the Astros and Angels. There's a team that has some bullpen arms. The Astros is where teams should be looking, but nonetheless, staying on point. This is still a team and teams in the American League that are having struggles when away from home. And if you go through the rest of the league, especially the National League, you see a lot of 500 when it comes to baseball, slightly over. The only team that really struggles away is definitely the Miami Marlins. And you can also kind of flag the Colorado Rockies and the San Francisco Giants. Diamondbacks are also under 400, but that's only about 4 or so teams. I had 3 teams just in the two teams in the American League East, and I had 2 teams in the American League Central alone before getting into the American League West that had 2 teams. Oh, interesting different dynamics in the American League and the National League when it comes to playing away from home field and being on the road. Teams have to find a way to win on the road if they're going to be successful in the later parts of the year. Not these teams that maybe don't have the expectations, but teams like the Blue Jays, teams like the Red Sox, teams like the Tigers. These are teams that have to find ways to win away from home. Going to the National League for a minute, the Pirates started so hot. It was great to see Pittsburgh started to win, but now we're starting to come back down to reality. 3-7, they're past 10 at time of recording. Such a good time to go ahead and play the Blue Jays, but the Brewers back up to where they need to be. A lot of things starting to shape out a little bit now. Padres and Dodgers still battling, but I always look to see where the Mets are and how they're doing. Obviously, they didn't start the year off well. That's not been where they need to do. High payroll on this team. The Mets trying to bring in players. I'll circle back to the Blue Jays. I'll even go to the Brewers. Team that has such high chemistry. Even the Seattle Mariners have that as well on their team. I feel like despite that they're third in the division under 500 right now, the Mariners, these are teams that have good dugout chemistry. And when I look at the Mets, watched a couple games, they're distraught. This is a team that has, when they start, I think, be more confident and working with each other. I think this is where they'll start seeing success in the field. But I'm going to tell you something as a Jays fan, and that I'll say that I like seeing them where they are because of a little bit of toast. I'll say if you're a Mets fan, I feel bad for you because you're bought a team or you're bought in on a team that's really invested, spent money, Soto, Lindor, Bichette, pitchers. You do what you can and you're not seeing the results. Mets fans have it unfortunate. Will they turn it around? Remains to be seen. Big surprise. I've been wanted to talk about this for a couple weeks now, and I'll do it as the last topic. St. Louis Cardinals. And no, I'm not going to be diving into the Dodgers at all, okay? We know the Dodgers are a good team. We know that they're top of the division. The Padres and them have been battling for a while now. The Padres, everyone knows I have love for the Padres. I'd love to see them overcome over the Dodgers. But again, it seems like the NL is going to be between just a few teams. The Braves are back. Brewers, Dodgers, Padres kind of seems like a way that we figured it would go. The Phillies are bouncing back, but I'd love to see the Nationals where they are. But going to the Cardinals for a minute, like I said, that I want to talk about for a few weeks. Jordan Walker. This was a prospect. When I saw this guy, I thought he was older than what he was. He gives me that 80s, 90s feel, the way that he looks. No offense to him. He has that swagger, that swing, that unique swing. This is somebody that I was waiting for to get into potential, and so were a lot of St. Louis Cardinals fans, and they're now seeing it. They are now seeing it right now on the field, and they're doing well this year, better than I had expected that they were. Had a little bit of 500 baseball in the last 10, but this is a team that has done extremely well, and it's been at the back of Jordan Walker and other guys, but guys coming into their own finally, which is probably very exciting for the Cardinals fans. And a big goal of mine is to go see the San Francisco Giants and Blue Jays, obviously in San Francisco, but I would love to be able to go to Busch Stadium and see the atmosphere there in St. Louis when they play the Jays at some point. So I would love to see the Blue Jays continue on a good path and being a competitive team, and the Cardinals getting there, because that would just make me more eager to go watch a game at Busch Stadium. Random points, kind of fired off random different topics there when it comes to the world of baseball. Usually Connor keeps me grounded, but you had me talk about it today. So you had Memorial Cup, and you had a independent strike zone, I guess, version with yours truly. But now it's time to wrap up the show. We're just over the hour point now, so I'm a little bit over. A lot of content for you to enjoy. Hey, we just do a show every 2 weeks now. So our show is typically an hour long. We actually budget, if you will, for an hour and 15 is the limit that we do on the show on a normal basis. But through busy season, once a week, we do like our plans to be in an hour. But as we hit bi-weekly, we usually hit about an hour and 15 because of the catch up that we do on the show. So we definitely appreciate you joining us here on the game, as you always have. The year anniversary, when we get back to September into next January, we're going to be at 11 years for this show. Unbelievable. I was thinking about that the other day. Just wild. But we hope you enjoyed the hockey content. We hope you enjoyed the baseball content. Hockey, football, baseball, those are prime topics that we talked about. But obviously talking about basketball, we're appropriate in other sports. But before I wrap up, I want to say, remind of a couple of things. One, we talked about the coaching staff of the National Hockey League. Who's going to Edmonton? Who's going to Vancouver? Who's going to Toronto? Comment below. Who's winning the conference finals between the East and the West? Comment below. When it comes to the Worlds, Brendan asked about Crosby. What's your thoughts on that? Comment below. When it comes to Memorial Cup, who do you think's winning that? Comment below. When it comes to Major League Baseball, what team surprises you on a good way and surprises you in a bad way? Comment below. And as a Blue Jays fan, talking as a host here and a fan, do you think they will turn it around? And you guessed it. Comment below. A lot of interaction on the show for you to enjoy. Hope you take part of that. If not, just hope you enjoyed listening to us here on the Game Sports Podcast. We love bringing you the content here again on the game. The Game Sports Podcast, powered by 91 Network, featured on Spaces, also on all social media platforms, all podcast platforms. You can find us anywhere. Just search at the Game Sports Podcast. And our next episode will be June the 3rd when it comes to a new show. But to remind you, we will have some special editions coming up in between all that with Nick Laporte, Gorgeous Gallant, and of course, Jordan Owens, as I mentioned at the top of the show. So make sure you keep an eye out on those. And for the Jordan Owens show, wanted to give you a little teaser. I waited till the end. So if you listen till the end, you get to hear this little fun teaser. No, it's not anything about the name or the changes coming in September or updates in September. You don't get to have that information. Arlo, my 11-month-old son, who's now 11 months, made an appearance on the Jordan Owens show at the very beginning of the show. He was a part of the show, and he was already trying to grab the mic to take it away from me. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but maybe there's a future host getting groomed over here at the McCaig household. Nonetheless, little spoiler for you, so keep an eye on that for that upload. I'm certain that you will enjoy it. And until June the 3rd, and in between when you hear some clips and when you hear the special edition shows, but until you hear us directly for our next news show again, which is June the 3rd, we hope you take care and get ready for some hopeful summer here in Northern Ontario. Overall, wherever you are, if you're from Europe, we have listeners overseas in the United States, Northeast here in Canada, north, south, don't know my directions right now. Getting to the final point. It's just hard to let go and say bye to a show and not talk to you for 2 weeks. No, jokes aside, wherever you're located, hopefully that you're able to enjoy some summer weather and you keep it locked here on the Game Sports Podcast. Until next time, I'm here to remind you to keep your stick on the ice, swing your bats, catch your touchdowns, drain your threes, and shoot your shots. Booyah.